Hi guys, Cassie here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Cassie Beebe. I am the author of Keep No Record, Broken Together, and the Greenwood Trilogy. And I am currently releasing a new sweet rom-com series on Kindle Vella. 1 week at a time, one chapter at a time. So if you're interested in checking that out, link is down below. It is a series of sweet rom-coms that all take place on the set of a reality dating show, kind of like The Bachelor. So if that sounds fun to you, check out the link down below. You can find it on Kindle Vella right now, or if you'd rather wait for it to be on ebook and paperback, you can also sign up for my newsletter, and I will send you updates whenever that happens. So first of all, sorry for the shaky camera. I don't have my whole setup going right now. But I wanted to film a little intro just so people aren't confused about what you're about to watch. So for the last few years, I have had the pleasure of teaching a couple classes at the Writing Gals Conference, which is my favorite conference. Well, I guess I haven't really been to many conferences, but I really love their conference because I am a romance author. And if you don't know who the Writing Gals are, they are a group of sweet romance authors, and they have a whole Facebook community called the Writing Gals. You can go join that if you want. It's open to any authors, but I would highly recommend it, especially if you write romance. And for the last couple years, they've had virtual writing conferences, and I've had the pleasure of teaching a few classes at them. So now that those conferences are over, those classes are just sitting on my computer, figuratively gathering dust, so I decided to go ahead and just put them up on YouTube so that you all can watch them and learn from them and enjoy them. So that's what you're about to watch. Just wanted to make that clear in case you're confused if I mention in the video the conference or the Facebook group or anything like that. That's why. So that, I think, is all you need to know in terms of disclaimers. So, without further ado, here's the video. I hope you learned something from it and enjoy. Happy writing, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my class on defining success for yourself. Now, this is more of a mindset class rather than like a how-to sort of deal, because there's this question that I have asked myself many times throughout my writing career, and well, really throughout my life in general, that I think is really important for everybody to ask themselves. And when I say everybody, I mean literally everybody on earth, not just writers. And I also, when I say ask yourself, I mean ask yourself again and again and again all throughout your life. So let's jump right in to what that question is. So the big question we're talking about today is, what does success look like for me? This is a really important question that we all need to ask to ensure that we are always pursuing what we actually want instead of accidentally getting wrapped up in pursuing someone else's version of success. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey, try to keep things short and not babble on for too long, but I want to talk a little bit about my life and how this question has impacted me throughout the years. So let's start with my college journey. So when I went to college, I was studying psychology, and I was studying psychology with the intention of becoming a therapist. Eventually, I wanted to open my own practice and be a professional therapist. So what I needed to accomplish all of that was a bachelor's degree in psychology, a MFT, a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and a PhD in clinical psychology. That was my game plan. Those were my goals, and that was the end result that I wanted, was that I wanted to be a therapist who had my own practice, and that was my goal. And some of you may know that in order to do that, you need to have a PhD. You can't just have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree to be a clinical psychologist with your own practice. So that was my plan. I had everything all mapped out. I was excited about this plan. I told, everybody about this plan, and I knew that it was ambitious and that it was going to be a challenge, but it was a challenge that I was totally up for. I've always loved school, and I loved going to college. It was actually a really big bummer to stop going to college because I just love it. If college was free, I would go take college classes all the time just for fun. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but it was a challenge that I was up for and a goal that I really wanted to accomplish in my life. But then things changed. So about 2 years into my degree, I realized that therapy was no longer for me. I was actually very surprised by the fact that I enjoyed the research side of psychology a lot more than the counseling side, which is the opposite of what I expected. I was dead set on being a therapist, a counselor, and I was actually really nervous about the research side. I knew that I was going to have to take research-related classes in order to get my degree, and being that I'm not super good at math and stuff like that, I wasn't excited about that part of it, and I thought that part was going to be really hard, but I was like, oh, I'll get through it to get to the good stuff. But as it turned out, I actually ended up really, really liking research and realizing that I didn't think I was cut out for being a therapist at all. So everything changed about 2 years into my degree when I realized that this goal I was going after was not the goal I wanted anymore. So at that point, 2 years into my degree, I was getting married that summer. So I had completed 2 years of college, and then that summer I was going to get married. And I decided that would be the perfect time for me to take some time off from college because I was reassessing my goals. If it was just a 4-year program, I was just getting my bachelor's degree in psychology, maybe I would have just kept doing that and thought, if I don't want to be a therapist, maybe I'll do something else with psychology. But because my goal was so specific and it was such an ambitious goal that was going to take many, many, many years of schooling and a whole lot of money, it just did not seem wise to me to continue to pursue it unless I knew for sure that the end result is really what I wanted. And at this point in time, I didn't think that was what I wanted anymore. So it seemed smarter to me to take some time off to figure out if it was really going to be wise and a good investment for me to continue going to college. So this was kind of the first time in my life that I really wrestled with the big question, what does success look like for me? So I asked myself, I sat down and I looked, 5, 10, 20 years into the future, and I said, okay, what do I want? Where do I want to be? Because whatever path I start going down right now, I want it to lead to that end result, right? And I didn't quite know the answer to that question yet, but I did know that my vision for the future of where I wanted to be was not being a therapist. I knew that for sure. So I decided to drop out of college. Now, this was a very emotional decision. There were a lot of hurdles. It took me a really long time to actually fully admit to myself that this was the right call to make, because it was just really emotionally difficult for me to decide to drop out of school. I felt a little bit like a failure, like a quitter. I worried about what people would think, which the funny thing is that I never worried about what my close friends and family would think, because I knew they knew my decision and why I was feeling this way. But I'm more worried about what random acquaintances would think, or people that I'm not that close to. I worried that people would think that I was I quit because I couldn't do it, or it was too hard, or, I worried that people would think, well, of course, like, that was a lofty goal to begin with. Why did she even think that she could accomplish that? Of course she, ended up quitting. And I knew myself that that wasn't why I was quitting. It wasn't because it was too hard. It wasn't because I didn't think I could do it. I know now that I absolutely could have done that. But it just wasn't what I wanted anymore. I also worried a bit about letting people down, which is honestly kind of silly because nobody in my life is like that. Thankfully, I'm very blessed that I don't have family that would see me changing my goals or giving up on a goal as letting them down. Like, they're not like that. So that was an irrational fear. Nobody felt that way about my decision to leave college. But there were people in my life who were very proud of me for pursuing that goal of getting my PhD and becoming a therapist, and I worried that they would think less of me if I decided not to do that anymore. And overall, it was just embarrassing, if I'm being honest. It was a little embarrassing to go from not only to say, like, I'm going to go to college and then say, never mind, no, I'm not, but to say, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get my bachelor's degree, I'm going to get a master's degree, I'm going to get a PhD, I'm going to do all this, really impressive stuff with my life, to I'm going to drop out of college and keep working as a housekeeper, is what I was doing at the time, at a hotel. That's my plan for now. That was embarrassing, if I'm being honest. It was very hard emotionally for me to make this decision. But as I asked myself the big question, I knew that it was the right call. I knew that the goal I previously had was no longer the goal that I was working towards, and I didn't want to keep walking down that path only to have it lead me to a place that I didn't even want to be anymore. So 2 years later, my decision to leave school was actually pretty strongly confirmed as the right decision because I wrote my very first book. So I have wanted to be an author since I was a child. I'm, that stereotypical story of I've wanted this for as long as I can remember. I've always loved writing stories and wanted to write stories professionally. And the first time I ever wrote an actual novel was 2 years after I left college. I wrote and published my first book, Keep No Record. And the reason I say that this really confirmed for me that leaving school was the right decision is because the time period in which I got the idea for this book, Keep No Record, that would have been my senior year of college. It would have been the spring semester of my senior year, so the very, very tail end of my bachelor's degree is when I would have gotten this idea. And let me tell you, if I had been in college and been working through my senior year, very last semester, about to go into finals, if I had had this idea and I was still in college, I would have thought, oh man, that would be a cool idea for a book. And then that would have been the end of it. I would have let it go. I would have said, oh, that'd be neat. But I can't write a book right now. I'm busy. I've got a lot going on. I'm about to graduate college. I gotta finish strong. And I probably never would have written this book. And if I had never written this book, then I never would have written this sequel, which is my second book. And the reason I wrote my Greenwood trilogy, which is the other 3 books, I have 5 books out right now, the 2 from this series and then my Greenwood trilogy. The whole reason I wrote my Greenwood trilogy was very closely tied to writing this series. So it's very possible that if I had continued going to school, even just to get my bachelor's degree, even if I didn't pursue my master's and my PhD, if I had kept going to school, I probably would not be an author right now. I would not have any of the 5 books that I've written. They wouldn't exist. And that, to me, is a really great confirmation that leaving school was the right choice for me, because I'm very, very happy with where I am right now. So after I wrote this book and published it, I again went back to the big question. I asked myself, what does success look like for me? And I started to get a little bit of a clearer picture of where I might be wanting to head with my future. So at this point in time, after I wrote that book and around the time that I was deciding to self-publish, this is when I discovered AuthorTube, which is, if you don't know, a community of authors on YouTube who make YouTube videos about writing and publishing. And I got really involved in watching all of those videos, and I particularly found one person who I'm not going to say their name because I have some things to say throughout this discussion that might be a little negative, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody. So I'll just say that I found somebody who is a very popular AuthorTuber, very successful woman, and I decided to start emulating her. Not in a way that I was being fake or trying to pretend to be her or something, but just, in the way that you should if you decide you want to be like somebody, or you want to pursue the same kind of career they have and they're succeeding in that, then you want to study what it is that they're doing and maybe try to do some of those things yourself and see if you can end up in the same position. So that's what I started doing. I saw this woman on AuthorTube. I saw a woman who was making money being an author and writing books and talking about books, and I was like, that sounds fun. That sounds like what I want to do with my life. So let me try to see if I can, become more like her and have a similar experience. So fast forward about a year, and at this point I was working really hard on AuthorTube. I had been on AuthorTube for about a year, been posting regularly, once or twice a week, really trying hard to study AuthorTubers and how they're succeeding, how they're, making a living doing AuthorTube and writing, so that I can, break in, have my breakout moment where I can start making some money doing that and eventually lead to that being my career. And at this point, I found an AuthorTuber who was, I guess you could say, criticizing, but not in a bad way. She made a response video to my favorite AuthorTuber on the topic of writing to market and rapid release publishing, because the AuthorTuber that I really liked, that I had been trying to emulate, she had kind of a negative view of writing to market and rapid releasing. So this other woman made a response video to her and kind of corrected some of the misinformation that she gave in that video. And when I saw that it was oh, I'm disagreeing with this lady and I really like that lady, I'm like, oh, well, I wonder why she disagrees. What does she have to say? I'm a pretty open-minded person. I want to learn from everybody, and I don't want to be learning false information and thinking it's true. So I'm like, oh, I'm curious to see why this person thinks that this advice was bad. So I watched her video and I had a bit of an epiphany. One of the things that she discussed in the video when she was talking about writing to market and rapid releasing, the other woman had mentioned some negative things about how you have to write really fast to rapid release, and that leads to your work not being as good or whatever. And this woman was saying that you actually don't have to be a very fast writer to do rapid release publishing. And one of the things that she pointed out when she was discussing this is that the woman that I was emulating, that I was trying to learn from her to pursue a similar lifestyle as what she had, that woman doesn't make a living as an author. She makes a living as a YouTuber who also writes books. And there's a very big difference there. And when I watched this video with this woman talking about rapid releasing and writing to market, I learned so much from her, and I realized that's actually closer to what I really want. I want to be a writer. I want to write. I want to spend most of my time writing. And it just hit me. I had a revelation that I don't want to make a living being a YouTuber. I never have wanted that. Never in my life have I wanted to be a YouTuber. I'm actually like kind of a pretty private person. I also really don't like social media very much. And I was actually, at this point in my life, I had been getting very severely stressed out. And I now know that part of that was from pushing myself to be on YouTube and to do things like vlogs and stuff that I wasn't 100% comfortable with and just didn't really work for me and stressed me out. And, I didn't really realize it was stressing me out at the time. But anyway, it was at this point where this woman pointed out, like, yeah, this lady over here makes a lot of money. She's successful. She has a good career. She's good at her job. But she is not making money being an author. She's making money. Well, she's making money being an author, but she's not making a living just being an author. She's making a living primarily on being a YouTuber and, all those extra other things she's doing. She's not primarily being an author. And that just kind of blew my mind a little bit because it made me realize that there are two paths, right? And one is the path toward being a full-time writer, and the other is the path that leads to being a YouTuber who also writes books. And I wanted to be following the writer path, but what I actually was following was the YouTuber who writes books path. And this video is what from that woman critiquing this other author-tuber just totally revealed that to me. It's like the scales fell from my eyes and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to be a professional YouTuber. That's not what I want. So again, it led me back to the big question. What does success look like for me? And I realized that, first of all, what success did not look like at all for me. If I looked ahead 10 years down the line, did I want to be a YouTuber? Did I want to spend most of my time being a YouTuber? Absolutely not. That was never my goal. So what success looked like for me at this time when I asked myself this question was spending most of my workday writing. When I pictured my life 5, 10, 20 years down the road, what do I actually want? What am I actually trying to accomplish? Well, the kind of life I wanted was one where I can spend most of my workday writing. And again, that brought me back to realizing that emulating this YouTuber lady was not the right goal because she does not spend most of her workday writing. She spends most of her workdays doing YouTube stuff, which is great. I'm not criticizing her for that. That's awesome. I mean, she's extremely successful on YouTube, so I'm not bashing her for that. It was not the path that I actually wanted. So I did not want to keep walking any further down that path. It was time to stop, take some steps back, go back to the fork in the road and reassess my options here. So at this time, success for me looked like spending most of my workday writing, not having a big social media presence because, like I just said, I am a very private person. Social media was stressing me out so much. I kind of hate it, you guys. Like, I really hate social media most of the time. So it was not a good idea for me to try to emulate a YouTuber. I saw that she was making money by being what I thought was a full-time author. And I was like, well, I want to be a full-time author. So surely if I ended up like her, I would be happy, right? But I was not really seeing the whole picture clearly. I wasn't digging deep enough into what her life looked like and whether or not that was actually what I wanted. So I did not want to have a big social media presence. And I also ideally would like to not have to have a second, like a day job, like writing. I'd like to spend most of my workday writing, and I'd like that to be my full-time money-making position. So at this point, that was what success looked like for me. And this is the point of time in which I made one of the best writing decisions of my life, which was finding and joining the Writing Gals Facebook group. This woman on YouTube who talked about rapid releasing and writing to market got me really intrigued by writers who work that way, because as I started to reassess and realize, well, I don't want to do YouTube stuff. I don't want to spend most of my time doing YouTube stuff. I want to spend most of my time actually writing. So I started looking into, like, okay, who is doing that? Who out there is successful doing that? That kind of author who is mostly writing all the time and not really spending a whole lot of time on all the marketing stuff and like having this big author platform and this social media presence that the AuthorTube community is really focused on, because I hate all of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, who out there is having success just mostly writing all the time? And I discovered that honestly, most of the people who were having success primarily writing every day were the rapid releasers and the writing to market crowd. So I tried to find that crowd. And one of the places that I found a lot of people who were having that kind of success was the Writing Gals. And that was the best decision ever for me. The Writing Gals community is the greatest, just the most wonderful writing community I've ever been a part of in my life. I've been a part of many different groups, tried out many different groups, and there was always something that didn't quite fit, but the Writing Gals is the one where I have really stuck, and I don't see that changing, really. I mean, you guys are just my people, and I'm really happy to be here. That's what I discovered at this point in my life when I asked myself the big question. But that's not all, right? You have to keep asking, because things change, right? Before I went to college, when I first started college, I really truly thought that I wanted to be a therapist. So my whole plan to accomplish that goal was a good one. The only thing that was wrong is that at some point that changed. And so you have to keep asking yourself the question. You can't just ask it once or a couple times and then assume that you're good on the path that you're on. You have to keep reassessing and keep saying, okay, what does success look like for me now? Is it still what it looked like for me 5 years ago when I started down this path, or do I need to take a couple steps back and maybe start down a new path? Because it's okay to change. It doesn't make you a quitter. You're just changing directions. You're not quitting. So I kept asking myself that question throughout the years, and now my vision of what success looks like for me is a little different than it was a few years ago. So now this is what my kind of vision of what success looks like for me now is. So number one is I want to enjoy writing, because there have been a lot of things throughout the last few years as I've gotten deeper into the writing world and learning about marketing, learning about how to make this a career. There have been a lot of things that have kind of stolen my joy for writing. So I want to enjoy writing. I know that for sure. That's one thing I want in my vision of the future, I want to enjoy that. I've also come to the conclusion that in my perfect vision of the future, maybe writing will be my career, and maybe it will not be, because I've actually discovered that one of the things that helps me to enjoy writing more is not feeling the pressure of succeeding. So not feeling pressure to write something that is more marketable if maybe I have an idea that I'm excited about, but it's not very marketable. I want to be able to enjoy writing that. And if I'm pursuing this as a career, then there are times when you do have to sacrifice something that you're excited about for something you're maybe a little less excited about because it will be more successful. I mean, that's just, some people act like that's some like negative, callous way of looking at things, but it's not. It's just life. It's just business. If this is your job and this is how you're making your money, then you need to do what makes you money, right? And sometimes what makes you money is not always the ideas that you're most excited about, which is not to say that people who are making money writing are just writing things that they don't care about. They are excited about those things. I have plenty of ideas that are very marketable that I'm excited about, but sometimes there's a few ideas that I'm a little more excited about that are not marketable at all. And I want to be able to enjoy writing those things even if they don't bring in any money. So I've come to the conclusion that maybe keeping my day job is not such a bad idea, because I really actually kind of like my job. It works pretty well with my writing career. They marry well together, and it gives me the security to be able to write whatever I want. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a few seconds. But the point is, in my vision right now for what success looks like for me, my writing being my career is not necessarily a part of that vision. It could be. I can still foresee that could be fun and that could be enjoyable. There are ways in which I think that could be a good goal, but I also am okay with that not being my goal. So it's certainly not my most important focus anymore. And then also, no more newsletters or social media. Now, some people might think this is like a death blow to your career as an author if you choose not to do newsletters. And I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about why I decided not to do newsletters. But for now, I will just say that part of my vision of the future of what happiness and success looks like for me is not having to do newsletters or having a big social media presence. And then finally, outsourcing marketing. That's something that I'm not able to do right now because I don't have the money for that right now, but it is something that I have as like a goal for my future. If I look 10 years down the line at what looks like happy success for me, part of that would be being able to outsource a lot of marketing things and maybe finding some people I can trust to take care of that side of things for me well, and having the money to be able to do that. So if that's part of my vision for success for the future, then I know that that's something I need to start working towards. So not all of these things are things that I'm experiencing right now. They're just things that I know I want to work towards. What I want from all of you is to ask yourself the big question: what does success look like for you? Picture your life 5 years away, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and ask yourself what does success, and when I say success, again, it's open to interpretation of what that means to you, but I also mean happiness. Like, to me, you can say that someone's successful if they're just like making a bunch of money, but if they're also miserable, then to me that's not success. So success to me includes a peaceful, happy, fulfilled life in general, overall. Like your overall health and happiness and success all goes together, not just your career success, because there are plenty of ways you can achieve career success and be very unsuccessful at relationships in your life, or at keeping your physical and mental health where it should be. So overall success is what we're talking about. So I want you to ask yourself, what does success look like for you? And what I want you to do is be very specific and dig deeper than you initially think you should. So that might mean make a list of things. What does success look like for you? And then look at that list, look at your points, and ask yourself, can I be more specific? Can I dig deeper than that? So let me give you an example. On the previous slide, I listed what success looks like for me right now. And one of those things is enjoy writing. That is very, very vague. We can definitely be more specific than that. So let's do that. Let's ask me, what does enjoy writing mean? Well, if we're going to dig a little deeper, I would say having another source of income is a way that I can enjoy writing more, because as I just discussed, the fact that I have a day job that provides all that I need monetarily means that I can write whatever I want, whether it's a marketable idea or not. It also means that I don't have to have deadlines, which is another thing on my list of enjoying writing. Not having deadlines is really beneficial for me to be able to enjoy my writing more. I don't do well with deadlines. A lot of the things that Michelle Pennington says on the Writing Gals podcast about her journey regarding ADHD. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I think it's very possible I might have that. And I definitely relate to a lot of what she says about things like deadlines and making promises to your readers and getting yourself put in a box, and then you realize, oh, maybe I want to do this instead, and then you feel like you can't because you're in a box and you have to finish, that box first. So that's something that makes me not enjoy writing very much, when I put myself in a box with deadlines. And so that's another aspect of enjoying writing, would be not having deadlines. And then no newsletters. I said I would get into why that's important to me, and it's kind of what I just said about not making promises to your readers and putting yourself in a box. I really, really, really dislike having to tell everybody what I'm doing all the time, because quite frankly, sometimes a month passes by and I haven't done anything really, not anything interesting or noteworthy, nothing related to my writing career. Maybe I just took some time off. Maybe I did some personal things or some personal growth that I don't really want to talk to the whole world about and my newsletter list about. So sometimes I just don't really have anything to say. And not only does this make writing newsletters hard, but it also infiltrates into my actual day-to-day life, where I start to feel like I need to do something exciting so I have something to put in my newsletter. And it's like, I don't really want to go do something exciting though right now. I'm actually really happy just having kind of a normal, boring life at the moment. And that's actually been good for my mental health right now. So I don't need to go do exciting things, but then I don't have anything to say in my newsletter. And then there comes, the issue of promising things to your readers. I mean, I'll tell people, oh, I'm going to do this, and I have this story idea, and that's what I'm working on right now. And then like a week or two later, I realize I don't think I'm happy with this story anymore. I don't think I want to do this. Or maybe I have an idea for something else that I think is better for me right now, and I want to make that change. A common theme among these things on the list of how I can enjoy writing more is getting rid of anything that stifles creativity and and holds me back from being flexible. That is something that's very important to me and a very important aspect for me when it comes to enjoying writing. And that might not be true for everybody. Some people work really well with deadlines and plans and outlines and staying structured, and they enjoy that. But for me, I need to be more flexible, and that's how I enjoy writing the most. So no more newsletters is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of what I would recommend you do when you're applying everything we're talking about here, is sit down, ask yourself, what does success look like for me? Start writing out your list, like I did on this slide here. This is my list of what success looks like. But then look at those points and dig a little deeper into being more specific about them. And what I definitely don't want to see on your list is anything along the lines of, I want to be an author, or I want to be a writer for a living. That is way too vague, okay? There are a million different ways that people do that. And if you're that vague, then the problem you run into is what I ran into when I saw someone on YouTube who said they were a full-time author, and I thought, hey, that's what I want to be. Maybe I should be her. Maybe I should start doing what she's doing because she's a full-time author and that's what I just said I want to be, right? But then when I dug deeper and I got more specific about what she is, it was, she writes, she's written a few books, but I've actually written more books in the last couple of years than she has in her whole writing career, at least publishing wise. I don't know how many books she's written before she started publishing, but I've published more books than she has, and she is a full-time author, but she is also a full-time YouTuber, and she also, does some other things to make money. And so as I dug more specific, I realized, okay, just saying I want to be a full-time author is not specific enough, because that could lead you to chasing down someone else's version of success, and it'll lead you all the way down that path. Remember that picture we saw, this picture of the two paths, right? So that could, chasing someone else's vision who says they're a full-time author could lead you down any number of different paths that aren't actually what you want. So you really need to be more specific than that, is what I would recommend. Because the last thing you want to do is find out 10 years down the line that you have been gung-ho down this path and you've been succeeding, you've been doing everything right, you've been accomplishing everything you need to do, you're running down this path, and then you end up at the end result and it's not what you wanted at all. Because that wasn't even where you were trying to go. You just took a wrong turn somewhere, and you did a really good job running that path, but it was the wrong path, and that's not what you want. So that's why you have to be specific, and that's why you have to keep asking yourself this question over and over and over again all throughout your life, not just about your writing career. Ask yourself this about everything in life. Ask yourself this about relationships, other jobs, hobbies even, or anything in your life. You can ask yourself this question and keep asking it, because people change. We all change, and you're going to change a lot throughout your life, and you don't want to keep going down the path once you realize that it's not the right path. But you're never going to realize it's not the right path unless you take a minute to pause and ask yourself. If you just keep running, you'll get somewhere pretty fast, but is it where you want to be is the question. So you got to take a minute to pause, take a water break, sit down on the bench, and make sure this is actually the path you still want to be on. All right, so that's it for this class. I hope that this discussion was useful for you. reach out to me in the Facebook group if you'd like. Tell me, I'd love to hear what you guys come up with if you make your own lists of what success looks like for you and what path you're trying to go down. I'd especially love to see how you take your vague answers and dig deeper into them and make them a little more specific and more developed. So yeah, please let me know if you have anything to share in the Facebook group, or if you have any questions. I'll be in there. There's a YouTube, I was going to say link, but it's not a link. You can't click on it. But there is a YouTube URL there that you can type into your browser if you want. And that is just a video that I put out recently that is very similar to this discussion, but goes into a little more depth on my life story regarding leaving college. And the video, I believe, is titled "Let's Talk About Quitting," and I made the thumbnail me and a big arrow pointing to me that says quitter because I just really want people to know that quitting or stopping something isn't a dirty word. Quitting is not always a bad thing. There are plenty of things in life that you should quit. And also, it's not even really quitting in the first place. It's just changing directions. And I think it's really valuable for us all to remember that we are malleable, we are ever changing, and it is very unreasonable to expect that you are going to be the same person in 10 years as you are right now, and that the path you're going down and the goals you have and the dreams and ambitions you're working towards are going to be exactly the same in 10 years as they are right now. So don't put that on yourself. You're allowed to change. You're going to change. So you're going to change whether you like it or not. So you might as well acknowledge it and, be a part of reality and address that. That's it for me. I'm going to stop rambling now, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.